The galaxy was quiet, but not in a peaceful way. It was the kind of silence that made every listening post, every patrol ship, every deep space sensor crew feel something wrong was about to happen. Ships moved slower, voices on comms spoke softer, and even the stars seemed to burn with less warmth. Somewhere in that endless darkness, a soundless signal began to move, touching world after world, station after station, without asking permission. At first, alien analysts thought it was background noise, the static that always hummed in the black between suns. But then the patterns appeared, too perfect, too deliberate. It was not natural, and it was not random. It was a language, a very old one. So old that only a handful of civilizations even had records of it, and those records were more legend than fact. The first to recognize it were the Ivathi, a people known for building memory vaults that survived the collapse of entire planets. Their archives told of something called the First Fleet of Humanity, ships that could make stars bow, ships older than most of the galaxy itself, ships that were said to have fought in wars so ancient that even light from those battles had long since faded into darkness. No one had seen these ships in hundreds of thousands of years. Most believed they were only myths, stories told to frighten ambitious rulers or arrogant warlords. But the Ivathi didn't laugh. They sent the signal to the Galactic Council with one warning: they are awake. From that moment, panic began to spread. On the border between the Kasari Empire and the fringe of human space, Commander Valesar stood on the bridge of her cruiser, watching the long-range scans. The strange signal was getting stronger every hour. Her officers whispered about the legends. She told them to focus on their duties, but even she felt a pressure in her chest every time she looked at the readouts. Her ship was one of many sent to watch human space. No one trusted the humans. They were quiet, too quiet, for too long. They had no colonies outside their home systems, no fleets roaming the galaxy, no trade convoys like other species. For centuries, they had stayed behind their borders, saying nothing, doing nothing. It had made the rest of the galaxy nervous. Some thought it was weakness. Others thought it was a trap. Now with this signal, everyone feared the second option. Valesar's second officer, a young male named Theron, approached her station. "Commander, the signal isn't just broadcasting, it's answering." She turned to him sharply. "Answering what?" Theron swallowed hard. "It's responding to something outside the galaxy. We don't know what, but the responses are coming from deep within human space, from multiple locations." Valesar leaned over the console. Her eyes widened. The returning pulses weren't coming from planets or stations. They were moving. Slowly at first, but then faster, as if the senders were waking from a long sleep. Her sensors began to resolve the shapes. At first, they looked like massive asteroids. Then, more detail appeared. Hulls so large they blocked out stars. Armor. Plating blackened with scars that seemed older than recorded history. They were warships. And they were enormous, each one larger than a moon, bristling with weapons so alien in design that even the ship's computer could not identify them. The crew fell silent. Even the soft hum of the bridge's systems felt too loud now. "Are we certain these are human?" Valesar asked quietly. Theron nodded slowly. "Every scan confirms it. The core alloys match prehistoric human technology, the kind that doesn't even exist in our museums." Valesar's throat felt dry. She knew the stories. Everyone did. The first fleet had been built for a single purpose: to fight a war that no other species could win. Not because humanity was stronger or smarter, but because they were desperate. Enough to do what others would never dare. They had built ships that weren't just machines. They were alive. The oldest record spoke of them as if they were thinking beings, warriors bound to humanity by oaths written into their very hulls. Some even claimed the ships spoke, though only to those they accepted as worthy. Valesar tried to push the thought aside. She didn't believe in ghost stories. But as the nearest of the massive vessels began to change its course toward her position, she found herself gripping the edge of her console. The ship did not transmit any threat. It didn't fire its weapons. It simply looked at her. Not with cameras or scanners, but with something else. The front of the colossal vessel glowed faintly. Two massive curved panels of hardened glass began to shimmer, revealing what looked like a bridge or command deck, but it was empty. Instead, a deep, low hum began to vibrate through her cruiser's hull. The lights on the bridge flickered, and then she heard it, not in her ears, but in her mind. A voice, old and heavy, like the weight of 1,000 years of war, we remember. She stepped back, heart pounding. Around her, the crew scrambled to understand what was happening, but their voices felt far away. The great ship's glow intensified, and in its light, Valsar thought she saw faint etchings across its hull battle honors, names of systems that no longer existed, victories over enemies whose names had been lost to time, the warships. Engines came alive, burning with a cold white fire. It turned away from her cruiser and began to move deeper into human space, its colossal bulk sliding through the void like a predator returning to its hunting ground. Valsar forced herself to speak. Track them, all of them. I want every movement recorded. Her crew obeyed, but their faces were pale. One of them whispered, "Why are they waking now?" No one had an answer. Within hours, every border sensor station reported the same thing. Dozens of these ancient ships were on the move. Some emerged from hidden vaults buried under dead moons. Others rose from oceans on human worlds, shaking off centuries of rust and coral. One even came from beneath the ice of a forgotten planet, lifting into the sky with a roar that split the air. Across the galaxy, leaders demanded explanations from humanity. None came. The humans said nothing, made no threats, offered no warnings. Their silence was worse than open war. The Galactic Council gathered in emergency session. Old rivalries were forgotten as alien empires debated their next move. Should they attack before the fleet left human space? Or wait to see where these relics went? Valsar's orders came directly from the Kasari Emperor. Follow at a safe distance, but do not engage. She knew safe was a lie. If these ships were as powerful as the legends claimed, there was no safe distance. As her cruiser shadowed the nearest of the giant warships, she couldn't shake the feeling that it knew she was there, not just the crew. The ship itself. Ours. Later, as they passed the outer edge of a red dwarf system, the warship slowed. Valsar's sensors picked up something strange. The massive vessel was sending another signal, not to her, not to any fleet in the galaxy, but to somewhere beyond. Somewhere deep in the void at the center of the galaxy. And from that direction, faint but growing stronger, came an answer. It was older than the ship. Older than the humans who built it. Older perhaps than the stars themselves. When Valsar heard that second signal, she understood the truth. The first fleet was not coming for the galaxy. It was going somewhere far worse, and whatever waited there had just woken up too. The Galactic Council chamber was filled with chaos. Voices overlapped, sharp tones echoed across the vaulted hall, and entire delegations shouted accusations at one another, each trying to be louder than the last, each desperate to hide their fear beneath a mask of authority. The signal from human space had reached them all, and the arrival of the ancient ships could no longer be ignored. The myths were no longer myths. The first fleet of humanity was real, and it was awake. Ambassadors argued about history. Some swore these ships had once burned entire star clusters to ashes. Others claimed they had saved the galaxy from a forgotten enemy. No one truly knew which story was true, but everyone agreed on one thing. The ships were too dangerous to exist. At the center of it all, the High Speaker of the Council slammed a clawed hand against the stone table, trying to regain order. His voice carried above the noise. The humans must explain themselves. They cannot unleash such things without warning. We will demand answers. But no answers came. The humans, as always, remained silent, while the council raged. Commander. Valesar's cruiser shadowed the nearest warship, keeping its distance. The massive vessel glided forward without hesitation, its engines pulsing with pale light. It ignored the alien fleets that surrounded human space. It ignored the council. Demands. It ignored everything, as though the rest of the galaxy did not matter. Valesar's officers were restless. One of them, Theron, leaned close to her chair. Commander, the warship has begun transmitting again. Not to us, not to the council. It's sending signals deeper into the galactic core. Valesar frowned. Is the core responding? Theron hesitated. Yes, something old. The frequency is unlike anything we have in our archives. It feels wrong. Valesar turned her eyes back to the massive shape outside the viewport. The ship was moving like a predator following a trail, and she realized then that it was not hunting the galaxy. It was hunting something older, something hidden where no one dared to go. The crew watched in silence as the warship shifted its course, pulling the others with it. Soon dozens of these colossal relics moved together, a formation so tight and precise that no living fleet could match it. And all at once, they jumped. Valesar's cruiser shook violently as the fabric of space rippled around them. Her scanners screamed with data that made no sense, reading coordinates that bent in on themselves, as if the ships were not just moving through space, but erasing themselves from it. When the stars returned, they were gone. Valesar's crew exhaled in disbelief. Taran whispered, Commander. The entire fleet just vanished. Valesar shook her head slowly. No, they are still here. We simply cannot follow where they went. Hours later, across the galaxy, reports came flooding. In fleets that had tried to intercept the warships had disappeared without a trace. Whole battle groups gone. No wreckage, no signals. No survivors. In the council chamber, panic turned to fear. If the First Fleet could erase modern fleets so easily, no empire was safe. Meanwhile, far from the eyes of the council, Captain Jace Rowan stood aboard a human escort ship stationed at the edge of the Sol system. His eyes were fixed on the same readings Valesar had seen. The First Fleet was awake, and the galaxy was already trembling. His cum officer turned toward him. Captain, a message has arrived from Valesar. Jace frowned. He had not heard that name in years. Valesar, the Kasari commander, the one who had once spared his life during a border skirmish. He remembered her eyes sharp, calculating, but not cruel. She was the kind who understood honor, even in a galaxy that had forgotten the word. Play it, he ordered. Valesar's voice filled the room, clipped and tense. Captain Rowan, the galaxy prepares to strike against you. The council is terrified. They believe your fleet will destroy them all. If you do not respond, they will act first. Whatever the humans have unleashed, it may already be too late. But you must know whatever the First Fleet is chasing, it is not from this galaxy. It is older. It is waiting. The message ended. Silence followed. Jace exhaled slowly. She knows. His second in command, a gray-haired woman named Admiral Kova, crossed her arms. Then she is one of the few. The council is blind. They fear us more than the truth. Jace turned to the massive hologram hovering above the bridge, a projection of the First Fleet's path. The warships were moving toward a place at the center of the galaxy that most maps simply marked with a warning. Do not enter. It was called the Graveyard of Suns, a region where stars had died without reason, leaving a black wound in the spiral arms. Signal the council, Jace said. Tell them the First Fleet is not their enemy. Tell them it moves to the graveyard. Admiral Kova's lips pressed tight. And if they do not believe us? Jace's voice hardened. Then they will learn. The same way the stars once learned through fire. Back aboard Valesar's cruiser, her sensors finally caught a trace of the warships again. The enormous vessels had reappeared closer to the galactic core, moving faster than any known drive should allow. Her crew struggled to make sense of the readings. One officer muttered, "Commander, I don't understand. It's like they're not bound to space at all. They jump, and the laws of physics bend to let them pass." Valsar knew it was more than that. These ships were not just machines. They were relics of a war that had nearly torn the galaxy apart before her species had even taken its first steps among the stars. And now they were awake, answering a call from something too old to name. That thought chilled her more than any weapon. Hours later, the First Fleet finally slowed. The graveyard of suns stretched before them. Dozens of dead stars floated like cold stones in a black river, their light long extinguished. Space itself seemed fractured here, the void heavy with silence that pressed against the soul. Valsar stared at the sight in awe. Her officers whispered prayers. And then the warship. The graveyard of suns was not empty. As the First Fleet slowed, the black void around them began to ripple. It was not the ripple of engines or weapons, but of something stranger, something alive. Valsar's sensors shrieked with data that made no sense. Energy fields twisting in patterns older than starlight, gravitational tides shifting as though invisible giants were moving in the dark. She gripped her chair, forcing her voice steady. "Report." Her crew obeyed with trembling hands. "Commander, the core signals are stronger now. They are not random, they are calling." Valsar felt her throat tighten. Calling what? The answer came before anyone could speak. The dead stars moved. At first, she thought it was her eyes playing tricks. The broken husks of suns, black spheres that had drifted lifeless for millions of years, began to shift. Slowly, deliberately, as though obeying an unseen command. They rolled in their orbits, opening vast scars of molten light across their surfaces. From those scars, shadows poured out. They were not ships. They were not creatures. They were something in between, colossal forms, shaped like predators, with wings of smoke and eyes burning like dying embers. They moved without engines, flowing through the void as though it were water. Her crew gasped. In horror, "What are they?" Valsar whispered the only answer that came to her mind. The Eaters of Light. The name had come from the oldest myths, whispered in academy halls, dismissed as nonsense. Beings so ancient that they had warred with the first civilizations, feeding not on flesh or matter but on energy itself. They devoured suns until the stars went black. They swallowed fleets whole, not for metal, but for the burning power in their cores. And now they were awake. The First Fleet did not hesitate. One by one, the colossal human warships lit their weapons. Beams of pale white light burst from their hulls. Not lasers, not plasma, but something deeper. Something that made Valsar's sensors scream, as if reality itself was being burned. The beams cut across the darkness, striking the shadow creatures. Void exploded with light. Entire forms of the Eaters unraveled, their smoke bodies tearing apart into ribbons of energy. Yet for every one destroyed, two more emerged from the broken stars. Valsar's cruiser shook as the shockwave spread. Her crew panicked, their voices loud, until she snapped, "Hold position. Do not flee." She forced her gaze to the warships. They fought like gods, their movements impossibly precise, their weapons rewriting the battlefield with every strike. Missiles left their launch bays and became black holes mid-flight, swallowing enemies whole before vanishing. Shields rippled, with harmonic tones that bent the energy attacks away, deflecting blows that should have split planets. And yet, as Valsar watched, she realized the legends were true. The First Fleet was not just fighting. It was dying. Every time a warship fired, pieces of its armor fell away, burned out by its own power. Hulls cracked. Energy bled from the scars. These ships were never built to survive. They had been designed for sacrifice, to burn brighter than the suns themselves until nothing remained. Her officers saw it too. "Commander, they are destroying themselves." Valsar's heart pounded. If the first fleet fell, nothing in the galaxy could stop these creatures. Her cum officer's voice broke the silence. Incoming transmission. It is human. It is Captain Rowan. Valsar's chest tightened at the name. Put him through. The holoscreen flickered, revealing the face of Jace Rowan. His features were aged, his eyes hard, but there was no fear in his voice. Commander Valsar, he said, his tone carrying the weight of a man who had expected this moment his whole life. You see them now. The Eaters of Light. The first fleet was created for them. And now the oath binds us. Again, Valsar's voice cracked. You knew this would happen. Rowan gave a grim nod. We hoped it would never wake. But the core has called, and the fleet must answer. She swallowed hard. And if the fleet dies? Rowan's eyes narrowed. Then the galaxy dies with it. The transmission ended. Valsar clenched her fists. Around her, her crew watched the battle unfold, horror on their faces. One of the warships broke apart entirely, its hull splitting open as its core ignited. The explosion lit the graveyard like a newborn star, vaporizing dozens of shadow creatures. The crew gasped, shielding their eyes from the brilliance, but when the light faded, the warship was gone. Only wreckage remained, drifting among the dead suns. Valsar's voice was low. They cannot last. Theron turned toward her. Commander, then what do we do? She looked at the holomap, at the impossible dance of titans before her. She wanted to say retreat, to flee before they were consumed. But her instinct screamed something else. The first fleet was fighting not just for humanity, but for them all. We stay, she whispered. We witness. And when the time comes, we choose. Her words had barely left her lips when another change shook the battlefield. The shadows stopped rushing. Instead, they gathered. Dozens, then hundreds of the creatures pulled back, circling as though forming a wall. At their center, space itself began to warp. A hole opened, not like a wormhole or rift, but like a wound in the fabric of the galaxy. From that wound, something massive began to emerge. Valsar froze. Her body numbed. It was larger than any warship, larger than any star she had ever seen. Its form stretched across the void, a colossal shadow with eyes like galaxies collapsing. Its body pulsed with hunger, and its presence pressed into her mind like ice. The first fleet shifted instantly, forming a wall between the creature and the rest of the galaxy. Their weapons roared again, beams and missiles tearing at the darkness, but the creature did not fall. It fed on the light, on the energy, growing stronger with every strike. Valsar's breath caught. How do we fight something that eats war itself? For the first time she saw Rowan again, his image flickering onto her screen without being invited. His voice was steady, almost calm. You do not fight it, he said. You outlast it. Valsar blinked. What? Rowan's eyes burned. With determination. The first fleet was not made to win. It was made to hold the line until the Eaters starve. They cannot survive without endless suns to consume. The graveyard is their prison. The fleet's sacrifice keeps them here. That is the oath. Valsar stared at the battle outside, at the warships tearing themselves apart, at the shadows clawing and screaming against the light, and she realized the truth. This was not a battle for victory. It was a battle for survival. And survival had a cost the galaxy was not ready to pay. The battlefield in the graveyard of suns had become a nightmare painted across the stars. The first fleet fought with a fury unmatched. Ancient warships unleashing weapons that burned holes in reality itself. Their beams carved through the shadow creatures. Their missiles tore apart the void. Their shields pulsed with harmonics that bent enemy attacks away. But for every enemy destroyed, more poured out of the wounded stars, feeding, growing, screaming across the fabric of space like a chorus of hunger. Valsar's cruiser drifted behind the battle, too small and fragile to intervene, yet unable to flee. Every officer on her bridge trembled as they watched history repeat itself. The same war the legends had whispered about. A war older than memory. Another warship detonated, its core igniting with impossible brilliance. The light flared across the graveyard, and the shadow beasts shrieked as they were torn apart. But when the radiance faded, the massive vessel was gone, reduced to fragments. Velsar's second officer whispered, "They are burning themselves away." She closed her eyes for a moment, then looked again. The first fleet was indeed dying, but there was no hesitation in their fight. Each ship accepted its fate, its weapons roaring until the last possible moment. This was not war, it was duty. Then her sensors screamed with new readings. The colossal shadow, the one larger than any warship, was still feeding. Every blast, every flare of light only made it stronger. Its form had fully emerged from the wound in space now, its body stretching across half the battlefield, its wings blocking the stars behind it. Its eyes blazed with collapsing suns, and its maw opened like a void, hungering for everything. Velsar felt its presence in her mind, a whisper, cold and endless, not words, but hunger. The creature did not want to conquer. It wanted to consume. Until nothing remained, her crew staggered under the pressure. One officer clutched his head. "Commander, I can hear it." "It's inside me," Velsar barked. "Hold steady." Her voice shook, but she forced strength into it. "We are witnesses. Do not give it more than it takes." Suddenly, her screen lit up again. Captain Jace Rowan's face appeared, sweat streaking his brow. Behind him, alarms blared, and his crew shouted over the chaos. "Commander Velsar," he said. His voice was steady despite the storm. "We need you." Velsar's chest tightened. "I cannot fight these things. My cruiser would shatter in a single blow." Rowan shook his head. "Not fight, witness. The oath was made not only for humans. The fleet needs an anchor. Someone to carry the memory, someone to remind the galaxy why this battle was fought. If we all burn here, the Eaters will rise again in another age. But if someone lives to tell, the galaxy will prepare." Velsar froze. Her officers looked at her, wide-eyed. She understood the weight of his words. He was asking her to survive, not to win. To carry a burden no one wanted. Before she could reply, another shockwave tore through space. One of the great warships rammed itself directly into the colossal shadow, detonating its core in a blinding blast. The beast reeled, its body torn open, black smoke pouring from the wound. Rowan's voice hardened. "Do you see? Even gods can bleed. But this war will not end tonight." Velsar's throat was dry. What happens when the fleet is gone? Rowan's eyes were grim. Then the galaxy must choose whether it is worth saving. The transmission cut. Velsar clenched her fists. Her cruiser shook as smaller shadow beasts slammed against the debris fields, tearing metal apart in search of energy. She barked. Orders, firing every weapon she had. The guns were tiny sparks compared to the First Fleet's fire, but her crew fought with desperation, driving the beasts away. Then came the sound. It was not from her ship. It was from the warships themselves. A deep, resonant hum that echoed across the graveyard, vibrating through every hull, through every mind. It was not just noise, it was song. The First Fleet was singing. Velsar's heart froze as she understood. These ships were alive, yes, but more than that, they remembered. Their voices carried names of battles long forgotten, oaths sworn in blood and steel, promises carved into their cores. The song spread across the void, and even the shadow beasts faltered, their hunger stalling against the weight of memory. Her crew wept without knowing why. One of her officers whispered, "They sing of the end." Velsar stood tall, her voice steady at last. "Then we will not look away." The colossal shadow roared in fury, lashing out with tendrils of darkness that split entire warships apart. 2 more vessels collapsed in flames, their cores igniting as they fell. The song grew louder with each death, until the graveyard itself seemed to shake. Valesar's sensors flickered. She saw something impossible. The warships were not just fighting, they were moving into formation. Their hulks, broken and burning, aligned into a massive circle around the colossal beast. Taryn gasped. "Commander, what are they doing?" Valesar stared. "They are building a prison." The circle tightened, the warships linking their energy fields, their cores burning hotter and hotter. The colossal beast thrashed, tearing through some of them, but the line held. Every ship that fell only strengthened the barrier. The graveyard of suns blazed with light. Valesar's cruiser was thrown back by the shockwaves. Her screens went white, her ears ringing. When the brightness finally dimmed, she saw the truth. The colossal beast was trapped inside a cage of energy, its massive form writhing against the chains of light. The first fleet had bound it with their very lives, but the cost was terrible. Only a handful of warships remained, their hulls cracked and glowing. Their song had grown faint, their voices breaking. Valesar whispered, "They cannot hold forever." And she was right. Already the beast pressed against the cage, its hunger gnawing at the light. The surviving warships gave everything they had, their cores burning brighter, their weapons firing until nothing remained. Rowan's voice reached her one last time, faint, broken, yet unyielding. "Remember this, Commander. Tell them. Tell them what we gave. Humanity does not hide. Humanity holds." The last of the warships ignited, its explosion shaking the very stars. The cage tightened, sealing the beast deeper into the wound in space. The graveyard blazed like a newborn cluster, dead stars glowing for the first time in millions of years. Valesar's cruiser drifted in the silence that followed. The first fleet was gone. Only wreckage remained, floating like ashes across the void. Her crew was silent, staring at the ruins. Some wept, some prayed. Valesar stood tall, her voice soft but steady. "Record everything. The galaxy will know. Humanity did not unleash terror. They unleashed hope, and we will not forget." But deep in the shadows of the graveyard, beyond, even her sensors, a faint shape drifted. A warship, larger than the rest, its hull cracked but unbroken, its core flickering with the light of a star. It had not joined the final cage. It had chosen to remain. Waiting. For the day the Eaters woke again. The graveyard of suns was quiet again, but it was not peace. It was the silence of ash after fire, of wounds that had not yet healed. Valesar stood on the bridge of her cruiser, her eyes fixed on the wreckage drifting across the void. The first fleet was gone. The song of the warships had faded into silence, leaving only broken hulls and glowing debris scattered among the dead stars. Her officers moved slowly, their voices hushed, as though speaking loudly would dishonor what they had seen. Reports were filed, systems checked, but no one cared about routine anymore. Every soul aboard knew they had witnessed something greater than themselves. Valesar pressed her hands against the console. The weight of Rowan's final words echoed in her mind. "Remember this, tell them. Humanity does not hide, humanity holds." She whispered the words again, tasting them like iron, but then her sensors picked up movement. At first, she thought it was drifting wreckage, a flicker of mass, a shadow against the black. But as the reading sharpened, her blood ran cold. A shape moved among the ruins, massive and deliberate. One warship remained. Its hull was cracked and scorched, its armor glowing with faint heat, but it lived. Its core pulsed like a heart, slow and steady, refusing to die. Unlike the others, it had not given itself to the cage of light. It had stayed behind, watching, waiting. Valesar's crew gasped. Theron turned toward her, his voice shaking. "Commander." One of them survived. Valesar narrowed her eyes. No, it did not survive. It chose. The warship drifted closer, its size dwarfing her cruiser. Its presence pressed into her mind, the same weight she had felt before. But this time, it did not feel like a weapon. It felt like a question. Her heart pounded. She took a breath. Open comes. Broadcast. Her officers hesitated, but obeyed. The signal went out. Valsar spoke firmly, her voice steady. This is Commander Valsar of the Kasari Empire. I witnessed your battle. I witnessed your sacrifice. If you can hear me, what do you want now? For a long moment, there was only silence. Then, the great ship's lights flickered. Not randomly, but in patterns. Theron's hands flew across the console. Commander, it's language. Old, very old, but I think I can translate. Valsar's pulse quickened. Do it. The translation came through, a simple phrase repeated. Again and again, the oath remains. The war is not over. Her crew went pale. One officer whispered, the war is not over? But the beast was sealed. Valsar shook her head. Not destroyed, only bound, and bindings break. The realization sank into them like a blade. The sacrifice of the fleet had bought time, not victory. The colossal shadow was still alive, trapped in the wound, straining against the cage of light. And if the last warship remained, it was because its duty was not finished. Valsar clenched her fists. Humanity had not unleashed ancient terror on the galaxy. They had unleashed guardians, even at the cost of their own lives. And the last of them was still holding the line. Suddenly, her calm officer spoke. Commander, incoming transmissions. Multiple sources. The Council fleets are arriving. Valsar turned sharply. How many? Hundreds. Entire battle groups. They must have tracked the first fleet's course. They're entering the graveyard now. The bridge went silent. Everyone knew what that meant. The alien fleets would not come to honor the sacrifice. They would come to strike. To destroy what remained before humanity could wield it again. Valsar's jaw tightened. She had seen betrayal before. But this was worse. Minutes later, the void lit up with new arrivals. Alien warships filled the graveyard, their engines blazing, their weapons armed. The Council had sent everything: Kasari dreadnoughts, Ivathi carriers, Sarek swarms. The combined power of half the galaxy had come to finish the survivors. Valsar. Crew trembled. One officer said, Commander, our own people are among them. Her stomach twisted. She had sworn her life to the Empire, but now her empire stood ready to murder what had just saved the galaxy. The Council broadcast filled her screen. The High Speaker's face appeared, sharp and cold. To all vessels in the graveyard, the human relics must be destroyed. They are a danger greater than any shadow creature. Stand down or be fired upon. Valsar felt the weight of her crew's eyes on her. She knew what they wanted to hear, but she could not say it. She straightened her shoulders. Transmit to the Council, she ordered. When the channel opened, she spoke with steady defiance. This is Commander Valsar. I stood here as the First Fleet fought and died. They did not fight for conquest. They fought for us all. And I will not let you destroy the last of them. The chamber erupted in chaos. The speaker shouted back, Treason! You side with the humans against your own kind? Valsar's voice cut like steel. I side with the truth. The channel cut. Her crew braced, fear on their faces. Theron whispered, Commander, what now? Valsar turned to the last warship. The massive vessel loomed above them, silent but watching. She felt its weight in her mind again. This time, it was not a question. It was an invitation. She swallowed hard. Prepare a docking maneuver. I am boarding that ship. The crew gasped. But no one argued. They knew it was the only path left. Her cruiser edged closer, dwarfed by the titanic hull. A docking tube extended, locking into a scarred airlock. Valsar stepped into the chamber, her heart pounding as the hatch hissed open. The air was thick with age. Dust clung to the walls. The corridor stretched endlessly, carved not by hands but by something greater. Symbols glowed faintly on the walls, pulsing with the rhythm of a heart. Velsar walked alone, her footsteps echoing. Every step carried the weight of history, the memory of battles no one alive could comprehend. Finally, she entered a vast chamber. The bridge dotted was empty. Of crew, yet not lifeless. The walls shimmered with light, the controls glowing faintly. At the center stood a throne of steel, vast enough for a giant. Velsar stepped forward. The lights flared, and then she felt it. The warship was not just alive, it was aware. Its voice pressed into her mind, deep and resonant. Will you bear the oath? Her breath caught. Images filled her mind. The battles of the past, humanity forging the fleet in desperation. Oaths sworn with blood and fire. She saw Rowan, standing tall, his voice echoing through ages. She saw the cage of light, the sacrifice, the cost. And then she saw the future, the cage breaking, the shadows rising again. The galaxy burning if no one stood ready. Her hands shook. She whispered aloud, "If I refuse," the voice thundered. "Then the galaxy falls." She closed her eyes. Her life as a commander, her loyalty to her empire, her duty to her people, all of it weighed against the choice before her, and she realized she had no choice at all. She opened her eyes, her voice steady. "I will bear the oath." The chamber lit up. Symbols flared across the walls, pulsing with energy. The ship roared, its voice blending with hers, its core burning brighter on the bridge of her cruiser. Her crew gasped as the last warship moved for the first time in hours, its engines blazing to life. The Council fleets opened fire, and the war began again. The last of humanity's warships awoke with a roar that shook the graveyard of suns. Velsar stood on its bridge, her body trembling as the living vessel's power surged through her. The ship was not controlled by hands on levers or voices giving orders. It moved with her thoughts, her instincts, her will. She had accepted the oath, and now the warship accepted her. Her eyes glowed faintly with the reflection of the runes on the walls. She felt the pulse of the ship's heart, the burning of its core, the echo of countless battles fought across forgotten ages. It was like standing inside a god and realizing the god was listening. Outside, the Council fleets opened fire. Beams of plasma, swarms of missiles, arcs of particle fire rained down upon the last warship. The void blazed with light as weapons meant to crack moons struck its hull. Velsar felt the impacts like blows against her own body, but the ship's shields sang in response. The harmonics rippled outward, bending the Council's fire away, scattering explosions across the wreckage field. Her crew, still aboard her cruiser, cried out in fear over the comms. "Commander, they're targeting you. They'll destroy us all." Velsar's voice came calm, almost serene. "Then we show them what they try to kill." She extended her hand, and the warship answered. The void burned white, the ship's main weapon tore across space, a beam so bright it cast shadows across dead suns. A Council dreadnought vanished in a single instant, its hull collapsing inward before it dissolved into dust. Carriers exploded in blossoms of fire, their swarms of fighters swallowed before they could scream. But Velsar did not revel in the destruction. She felt the ship's sorrow in every strike. This was not victory, it was necessity. The oath demanded survival, not conquest. Still, the fleets pressed in. The Council feared humanity more than the shadows, and their leaders would not listen to truth. They wanted power. They wanted control. They wanted the last warship erased from existence. Velsar clenched her fists, guiding the warship through the storm. It moved with grace no modern vessel could match, sliding between attacks, unleashing weapons that twisted reality itself. Missiles erupted into miniature voids, swallowing fleets whole. Waves of light swept across battle lines, turning shields to glass and armor to ash. Her mind burned with the strain, But she held on. The ship needed her, and she needed it. Together they fought, one will across the stars. Then, in the chaos, she saw betrayal closer than ever. The Kasari fleet. Her own people. Their war banners filled the void, crimson and gold blazing across their hulls. She had once sworn her loyalty to those colors, had once believed in their strength. Now they aimed every weapon at her. Their commander's face appeared. On her screen, a man she had once called mentor. His voice was sharp as steel. Velsar, you have shamed us. Stand down and return to your people, or die with the humans you defend. Her chest ached. You did not see what I saw. The humans did not unleash monsters. They contained them. And the fleet's sacrifice saved us all. Why do you blind yourselves? The commander's eyes narrowed. Because humanity is the greater threat. We will not bow to their relics, nor to you. The channel cut, and the Kasari fleet fired. Velsar's heart twisted. But the warship roared with her rage. Its beams split the crimson dreadnoughts. Its missiles devoured carriers. Its shields sang louder. Her former comrades burned in the light, their screams scattering into silence. She wept even as she fought. Theron's voice broke through the comms, desperate. Commander, enough. They'll brand you traitor to the galaxy. Velsar's voice was steady, even through tears. Then let them. I'd rather be traitor to the blind than executioner of the truth. The battle raged on. Hours passed in fire and ash. Dozens of fleets shattered against the warship, their power nothing against the will of the oath. But Velsar felt the toll. Every blast drained the ship, every strike cracked its armor. The warship was mighty, but it was not immortal, and the Tofi was not a warship was mighty, but it was not immortal. Shadows had not vanished. The colossal beast still writhed in its cage of light, sealed by the sacrifice of the fallen warships. It strained against the bindings, its hunger gnawing at the chains. With every explosion, every burst of energy, it fed. The cage weakened, flickering. Velsar felt its whisper again, cold and endless in her mind. Hunger, rage, the promise of devouring all. She staggered but forced her focus back to the fleets. If she fell now, nothing would hold the beast. Then she heard another voice, faint but clear. Rowan, not alive, not present, but echoing through the ship itself. His memory was bound into its core, his oath carried in the steel. Do not fight alone. The oath is never borne by one. You carry us. All, Velsar gasped, her vision filling with light. She saw them, the voices of the First Fleet, the captains, the crews, the AI minds, all burned into the memory of the warship. They stood with her, shadows of fire, guiding her hands, strengthening her will. She rose taller, her voice strong. Then we hold together. The warship blazed brighter than ever. It surged into the heart of the battle, tearing through the last of the Council fleets. Explosions rippled in waves, debris scattering like sparks. Silence followed, broken only by the hum of the warship's heart. But the cage cracked again. Velsar turned, horror filling her chest. The colossal beast's chains of light flickered, breaking one by one. Its maw opened, its scream shaking the void, hungering for freedom. The warship's voice thundered in her mind. One chance remains, but the cost is yours to pay. Velsar steadied herself. Show me. The ship filled her with knowledge. There was a weapon hidden deep within its core, older than any fleet, older than any star. It was not meant to kill, but to bind. If she used it, the warship would become the prison itself. The beast would be sealed again, but the price would be final. The warship would burn out, and she with it. Her crew's voices reached her, desperate. Commander, return to us. Don't do this. She closed her eyes. She thought of her people, her empire, her oath. She thought of Rowan, of the song of the First Fleet, of humanity holding the line. She opened her eyes, fire burning within. Prepare the binding. The ship roared, its core igniting with light brighter than suns. Its weapons folded inward, reshaping into chains of energy. The colossal beast screamed, sensing the trap. It thrashed against the void, shattering stars. With its hunger, Valsar gritted her teeth. Every thought, every heartbeat, poured into the ship. Her body burned, her mind stretched thin, but she held on. The chains launched, piercing the void, wrapping around the beast. It roared, tearing against them, but the warship held. Energy surged, brighter and brighter, until the graveyard itself shone like dawn. Her final words echoed through the cums, steady and unbroken. Remember this. Humanity did not fight alone. And neither do we. The light consumed everything.